So creating work collaboratively, figuring out ways to survive with it is something where Canadian policy and Canadian groups are leaders in the world. There are examples of the things that we know are elements of a sustainable, resilient place. So food is a very large subject, and there's got 2 or 3 stories about it. The main thing is that it's all the terrible news about global food systems are going to kill us if nothing else does. We have here, and I have met during the week, examples of urban agriculture, examples of new distribution systems, examples of community-supported agriculture. They are not large. They're probably less than 1% of the flow of food through the province, but they are examples of where things are going all over the world. And so it raises the question, which is what our discussion, I hope, will be about. Okay, we have these acorns or these seedlings or these plants of the way that things would go. What is required to get from 1% to 10% to 50%? That's, to me, the heart of the matter. We've got this, I thought I would put a buzzword in for those of you who are in the business community, product service systems, just to prove that I'm not DBA into that world. Product service systems is basically how do you deliver a performance of something unique without owning the product itself, namely getting from one place to another. All over the world people are saying, why do we have to own a car which sits immobile, taking up space for 95% of its life and all the kind of other consequences that follow from that? We need to share. Cars are a resource for moving around. The sharing of resources optimally is one of the key features of what a sustainable life will be like. Here we have, in Halifax, an embryonic car share service. It could be sharing power drills, it could be sharing office space, it could be sharing anything you care to mention. There are lots of ways in which lessons from one kind of application could be transferred. It's tiny now, but that is growing. Lots of other places. Question, how do we help it to grow? Here we are in every single social kind of innovation expert will talk about collaborative innovation. Basically means human beings getting together with a passion and a meaningful task and say, let's do a project. So here we are in a place, this is what they call a platform. You see it's a space, telephone, coffee machine. We have one here, and it's a very great one, I must say. Platforms for local exchange, so Goldman Sachs have taken all the money. So my position is let them have their money. They won't be able to spend it on very much before too long. Let's look at ways of relocalizing exchange. We need tools and systems to optimize the exchange. We all hear about localizing the economy. What you do have here, and I was told about, is the kind of buy local, save local scheme whereby you get discounts from local suppliers. I suspect if the evidence from other countries is anything to go by, that probably won't work very well. It's a very uphill struggle. If you're running a small shop, why do you have to give people a discount just because you are local? Anyway, we'll see. Maybe it'll go better. More explosively successful is the emergence of local currencies, which enabled citizens to be reassured that the money they're spending is genuinely going to local products and services. On the left, you see the Lewis Pound, which was launched in England about a year ago. Fantastic success. There are now 9,000 second or third generation local currencies around the industrialized world where people have a kind of pretty good idea that it's a relatively low-hanging fruit type of social tool that doesn't take too much these days to introduce. Tourism. So I said, what about tourism? You can't have people, these hideous ships, sorry, I hope none of you own those ships in the harbour. Because I asked Peter, there's a thing, what was the poster say? There's a placard where the farmers' market's going to be, which says, facing up to a low climate change. And behind the placard was a ship, about 20 stories high, which just by sitting there immobile must be using more carbon emissions than the whole of the rest of the city put together. Anyway, so I said, well, what is it? Do you have ecotourism? And he said, I don't know, but Peter didn't know, but anyway, I met somebody who said, you don't know about woofing? So, hands up those of you who knew about woofing before you saw that ocean. Oh my God. Anyway, I think it's fantastic. I never heard of woofing before. We have what's called agritourism, which is a much less pleasant word. So we have that. We have, as you heard from Peter, and I've met half a dozen people from different ways who get it. that we are not going to be designing millions of products in the future. We're not going to be designing big, shiny buildings. Green transformation is not about things. And there are people here in Halifax, here in Scotland who get that. We have media who get it, that building things and creating things is not the core to where we are. This is a magazine that is famous around the world for being probably the only urbanism and kind of city culture magazine that understands about what the questions are to do with sustainable development of places where we live, Canadian. And that we've got an education system here that gets it. So for me, I went with Uffe Elbeck, who's the director of Chaos Pilots, one of the most famous kind of alternative business schools in the world, from Denmark. And we were completely blown away by our visit to the community college across the water. Partly by the building, there was this very, very elaborate and interesting new build going on, which will be a kind of test site for green technology. But that is a much smaller part of the story than the program of the institution. Here you have in place now a college that trains 122 different streams of skills and forms of professional and practical knowledge, in which every single student and every single teacher and every single industry partner has to agree to the statement that environmental stewardship is what this education system is for. I know of no other institution in the world which has made that clear statement about what it's for. And it was just quite amazing, and I know from talking to people since we went there that it's not widely known what an amazing thing you have in that place. And I want to go back and be a student there, I must say, I really do. So to finish, we have, it's in the air. I was on talked to a lot of people who saying, well, what have we got that isn't found everywhere else? There's nothing at the level of function that you can't find anywhere else. You know, car sharing, food boxes, all that stuff you find everywhere. But there's something in the history and in the kind of discourse and the way that people naturally regard the organisation of public life and their institutions, which you don't find everywhere else. So if you read the sort of the history of Moses Cody and his movement and all his colleagues, I changed the words to modern buzzwords, but it's all there for 50, 80 years ago. Collaborative innovation, resource mapping, informal economy, a huge part of what his work was about. Microfinance, they were doing that in a very organised way in the 1920s. Asset-based development, this buzzword that I use and so on, place-based learning, it was there, it is in the blood, it is in the DNA of the culture. And the culture of a place is as important to its prospects for sustainable transformation as are any technical solutions. So to conclude, what I've learned is what I've just told you. I'm very excited and thrilled to have been here, but I've done enough of this kind of work to say, okay, it's very nice to have a conversation, as you heard this evening. You've seen that there are examples, either typical of many or world-leading or some combination of both, of the kind of social, collaborative changes that need to be made. How does one go from here to build it up? I think we've got, I'm not talking about awareness about the issues. You all know about the issues. You all know, I think we are in the tipping point and the inflection point that people have said will be necessary for everything to change. I think we're right in the middle of it now. But so therefore, in a rather practical way, how do we get from 2% market share of the local food to 30% in 3 to 4 years? How do we help that education school reform and transform all the other educational systems and groups in the region and so on? And just this, I kind of call it this, the courgette chart. I'm lying, I told you that we know what chart, didn't I? Anyway, it's the second chart. Basically, if you imagine that these kind of nice tendril-like things are projects that develop through time, of some of the projects I've talked about, and the moments, the kind of red bits are when people get together to review progress. 4 days, I think, we regard as one of those red blob moments when we get everybody together and say, how's it going? What practical issues are you confronting? What needs to be changed? How can you do better? And so my question to you is, what can be done to help these emerging small seedlings, bigger, smaller, do better? What's missing that we need to find? And what are your reactions to what you would like to